Now, one of the things we talked about is how software should be of high quality. What does that mean? Well, in reality, high quality is going to mean different things for different projects. Now, you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? How can it be different things for different projects? Well, let's look at some basic understandings of what we mean when we say high quality. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. So, for example, speed. Speed is often equated to a piece of high quality software. But how fast does it need to be in order to be considered high quality? Well, this is a great example of it depends upon your project. So let's consider for a second something like you're designing a new system for an air traffic controller. You're required to provide information from radars, have a system that can see the information, translate it, and have the air traffic controller be able to reroute aircraft is extremely important. You have to be providing this information up to the second, if not faster. Waiting 10 or 15 seconds can mean the difference literally in life and death. Why? Well, if you think about it, aircraft aren't traveling like we travel when we walk or even when we drive in a car. Aircraft can be flying at anywhere from 150 to 500 miles an hour, maybe more in certain circumstances. So 10 seconds, while it may not seem like a lot, is a huge amount of time. Speed and how quickly it responds is extremely important. On the other hand, let's think about maybe a casual game. One that you play on your phone while you're just waiting for a couple minutes. You're stacking blocks or popping balloons or doing something like that. If the game hiccups and pauses for a half second or 2 seconds, or it takes 10 or 20 seconds longer to load, it might be frustrating, but no one's going to lose their life over it. But at some point, where does that frustration mean that you've gone from a high quality software to a low quality software? Even in cases like that, the user perception, the one who's going to be using it, matters. And they're going to care about it from a speed perspective. If you don't believe me, how often do you go onto a website and get frustrated about how long it takes to load or maybe download a file? Another example of high quality software is how usable is it? What's that user friendliness level? Okay, that's a real important question. Good software should be easy to use. How is it easy to use? That depends upon who you're talking to. What is its function? A lot of people say things like Amazon and Google have become so popular because they integrated a very simple search box. You don't have to know hundreds or dozens of commands. You just have to type in one box. And by typing that one box, you can get the results you're looking for. So usability is another thing. Of course, depending upon your application, maybe one box is all you need. Maybe it's not. You have to look into those things. Another example, and something that should be considered for all applications nowadays, is security. Now, of course, depending upon what type of application it is going to depend upon how much security you need. Obviously, if you're writing a banking application for a mobile device, that's going to be completely different than if you're building one of those casual games we talked about. But anything where we're allowing data to connect to different websites and share information between devices, we have to be considerate of our end user and their information. Cybersecurity is a huge field in and of itself. It relates to hardware components, it relates to software, it relates to everything. And just because we're not doing things where we're asking for a person's social security number or banking information doesn't mean we can choose to be lax in our security. Anything that has what we call PII, personally identifiable information, that information which can uniquely identify one of our users needs to be properly handled and respected so that they have faith and trust in us. Finally, one last thing you might think about when you think of high quality software is it should be bug free. Of course, making something completely bug free is very difficult. We're not talking about applications like we write in a beginner programming course that are only 20 or 30 lines of code long. That's easy to make bug free. What happens when you deal with something that's 20 or 30,000 lines of code long? That's what they say the average iOS app is. 20 to 30,000 lines at least. Many of them are much, much larger. Many applications today are in the millions of lines of code. Trying to have completely bug-free code is a real challenge. Unfortunately, some companies have said, you know what? We can't do it, so we're not going to really try that hard. So how do you get around that as well? These are important questions that you have to figure out, you have to answer for yourself when you're developing an IT project. Certain circumstances require near perfection. Think about the software that's involved in running a hospital. Everything from patient records to heart monitors. You don't want to provide the wrong patient record to someone. You don't want to have information that gets mixed between two different patients with their heart monitors or other types of applications. In the healthcare environment, you'll hear them talk about what they refer to as zero tolerance. That is, defects can cause lives to be lost. There is no tolerance for bugs. Maybe you're not writing that type of application, but does that mean that you can get off with not testing and checking for your bugs? We're actually going to talk about that more in the future, and we want to discuss what is considered to be a good application and is it considered to be bug-free enough. So be thinking about that. Start looking for these errors that you have in everyday things, because in reality, we've kind of become close to them. We see them and we just ignore them. So be looking for these types of things, because that is going to be coming up soon.